I think if more men realized that they're fighting for their own suffering or dependence, they wouldn't do it anymore. See, 150 years ago, 200 years ago, women were primarily in their feminine side. Or if you don't want to call it feminine, I think that's probably where the issue is that it's been called masculine and feminine. And what people don't realize is the whole thing, both of them, makes a human, regardless of gender, regardless of sexual orientation or preference. We are all humans. We have that masculine and feminine side. Now, if you don't want to call it masculine and feminine, maybe it makes it easier. So to call it logical, mental, and emotional. Then you can see we all have the logical, mental faculties, and we all have our emotional side. If you don't even want to call it that, you can look at the brain development and say it's left brain and right brain. Whatever way you want to call it, I do think that the biggest problem is that men who are in that red pill field, they don't understand that it's to develop your part of your brain that feels emotions and to mature means to not be immature. When you're immature, you are either suffering or you're dependent on someone else to fulfill the needs. If you think about a child, they can't go out and get a job and make their own money. So they are dependent on a parent or they will starve. They'll suffer. So for the emotions, what men have been taught is that if you show any emotion, then you're a woman, you're feminine, you're weak. That's not true. What's weak is to be immature and to be dependent on someone else. When you are not dependent, you are independent. Then you don't need someone else for your emotional validation, processing, regulation, all those things. So 150, 200 years ago, women had to fight for their rights to develop their masculine side. There were laws against them having their masculine side mature. They couldn't vote. They couldn't have jobs. They couldn't have money. They had no rights over their own bodies or their children, nothing. So they were fighting for the development of their masculine side. Now, the problem is men like to fight, right? I guess some people just like to fight, but there's nothing to fight for. Like, women want men to be emotionally intelligent, emotionally mature. So women are saying, come on, I'll even help you with this. So then they're fighting the women and saying, no, I don't want that. I don't want to be turned into a woman. But that's not it. You know, if there were laws saying that you can't regulate your own emotions, or, you know, you have to be dependent on a woman for your emotional regulation. You have to just stuff it down all day. Every time you get caught off in traffic, every time your boss talks down to you, whatever makes you mad, you have to just stuff it all down and then wait until you get home, unload it on your partner, and let her absorb it and tell you, you know, maybe they didn't mean that, or, well, you made it through, or, you know, give you all that nurturing and encouragement and support. Emotional maturity is the ability to give yourself that nurturing, encouragement, and support. And that doesn't mean that you don't get it from anyone else ever. It doesn't mean you don't need it from anyone else ever when you're really down. But it means that you're independent enough that when those things happen during the day, you will know how to process them yourself. You don't have to either suppress them or explode or just, you know, drink or do something to relieve them. You'll know how to express them from your body in a healthy way. So that's a whole lot. And I'm actually going to do some more videos about this because it's so simple, but it's so complicated. And the way that this argument has been structured is like, oh, well, you're just going to be a simp and do whatever she says. Or there's so much, like, when you look at it from a little bit farther, you can see that all of these emotionally immature, they want possession and control, not love or relationships or to be equals, to be partners. They want women to go back to being financially and materially and mentally immature so that they will be as dependent on them as these men are still dependent. And it's really sad because it's silly when you look at all the needs. You look at food. Is that a need that's just for men or women? That's a need for all people. If you look at, structure, that's what that left brain, traditionally called masculine, is. It's a structure. And then the emotions are the fulfillment, which is the traditionally feminine, which is why, the man builds the house and the woman fills it with love and decorates and all that stuff. I mean, these are very general, stereotypical things, but there's just so much that could be done right now. Like, men wouldn't have to wait 150 years and fight against laws to develop their feminine side. There's absolutely so much that would help them do that. And I should stop calling it feminine side, because there's so many men that are just going to be so turned off by that. But how about to become independent? Or, they call it women's liberation. It would be men's liberation to not have to depend on someone else or suffer for your emotional needs, and to not have to just suppress or try to pretend like it doesn't matter, or to find a common enemy and exhaust your emotions on that. And the common enemy, it seems like, is feminism. There's a lot. And I do believe that men are suffering, and the men's loneliness epidemic is a real thing. And I don't think it's helpful when women are making fun of it or demonizing men. I mean, it did happen. If you look up the suffrage movement and trying to get the right to vote, a lot of men and a lot of women were against it. They said, oh, she wants to wear pants. She wants to be a man. Oh, she's ugly. She can't get anybody. That's why she wants to be a man. There's still traces of it now, but it was terrible. I mean, even, I think it was in the 70s when the first woman wanted to run the Boston Marathon, and men were throwing cups at her, and they might not have been filled with water, I'm just saying. But there was so much pushback just to be able to do the things that now it's normal. It's normal. I'm wearing pants. It's normal for women to have a job. And these things were just so absolutely unheard of. And that's where we are right now, with men being able to unmask, have an emotional development on par with women. But it would be so much healthier for everybody. All right, more at some point. Thank you.